Zindagani, zindagani, uzoke asudan, baise kulfato maninas. You want to relax in life? You're talking about living and relaxing. They don't match together. It's a constant struggle. Karavan aladardaz manzil. Karavan aladardaz manzil ke birahim razan. Karavan aladardaz manzil ke birahim razan inast. In the journey of life, where no moment is sufficient enough to rest, there is no rest in life. It's a constant movement, change, migrating from the place of your origin, migrating from your original habitation. Migrating, moving on, changing color. And when we are in any part of our life, anywhere, moving with some people for some destination, and then we say, yeah, we are on our track, this is fine now, we make a decision, we move on, and when we reach there, we have no idea what awaits us there. Welcome to the Hazara Pioneers Library for the narration of A Vazir's Daughter by Lilias Hamilton. Chapter 20 is our target today, where we depict, display, discover, describe scenes in a harem. It was with a feeling something akin of that of appearing before a tribunal that Gul Begum entered the long, narrow room where the mistress of the house sat at one end, surrounded by several other women of evidently less importance. Gul Begum hamrai se nafar diga ki darmayandezi mislizi ki dego darbar darandan ki ek zandم دوسری دربار ششتا و دیگه زنها اطرافش گرفتن. You are welcome. خوش آمدین. The lady said as the strangers approached. It was only the usual form of Kabul greeting, but it sounded sweet to the girl's ears after the weary days she had gone through lately. امی قدرم که خوش آمدین بود بعد از روزها میشنوید درو. یک کلمه شیرینه. God keep you in peace, she returned fervently, and by a sudden impulse she darted forward and taking the stranger's hand in hers, she pressed it first on one eye and then on the other. God keep you in prosperity, خوشبخت باشین, she said. The lady was evidently pleased. Gul Begum's action denoted a certain amount of submission, which, from the description she had received of her from the girls who had seen her, was not what she had been prepared for. چیزی که گفته بود که یک دفعه که گل بیگم مایا که مورا فرهاد شاه خواسته اینا مگه موید خبر نی بس دی فکر که امکان داره که اینا میخواید جای از ما یک خطو بیره فرهاد شاه جای از ما رو بگیره کی باشه اما این چیزی را آمده نبود که رقم بینگرنه. She had expected a haughty beauty who was to take her place perhaps in the household, but she found instead an undeniably good-looking girl with quite submissive ways, and proper manners. کی خب بسیار تابع و بسیار مهذب و متمدن. Sit down, she said. Gul Begum turned and glanced at her mother. I cannot sit while my mother stands, she said. ببخشین مادر من ایسته من نمیتونم بشینم. Is that your mother? The lady asked, surprised. Yes, she is my mother, the girl said simply, repeating her interlocutor's words according to the manners of polite society in Afghanistan. Bale mother mast. The lady turned to the women who sat next to her and whispered quite audibly with a snigger, Can you imagine that woman being mother-in-law to Farhad Shah? Aywa, yeah. Gul Begum heard and flushed. We are tired and travel-stained, she said, and may not appear to be worthy of any position in your household, but my aunt there, Mother, the Asiri, the Safar, the Halkhwet, the Reside, Lekanono Zan Kimibini, is the wife of the chief of my country. And my mother is the wife of his brother, the Vizier. It is well, ho, 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 the lady said haughtily, as though there had been nothing to call forth such a remark on Gul Begum's part. Ho, ho, it is well. Are you not satisfied with the treatment you have received since your arrival? We are well, very well satisfied, both Halima and her sister-in-law said hurriedly. We have received the greatest kindness since we came here and are almost grateful to you for all you have ordered for our comfort. Why should you talk as though you had something to complain for? Halima went on, addressing her daughter rather angrily. She was indeed well satisfied with the good food and immunity from work she had enjoyed since her arrival. And feared any change would be for the worse, not for the better. I had no intention of making any sort of complaint as to the treatment we have received, the girl said quietly, then remained silent. But the flush did not soon die out of her cheeks, and she could not forget the lady's words. Kudam words? Can you imagine that woman being the mother-in-law of Farhad Shah? It could have but one meaning. Farhad Shah must intend to make her, Gul Begum, his wife. And that the girl felt could never be. And as the thought recurred to her again and again, the color deepened on her cheeks and the surkh shudariya. God, what am I to do? She murmured to herself, and tears started unbidden to her eyes. What am I to do? Was ever a girl more wretched? The lady saw the distressed look in the girl's face, but failed to divine the cause. I'm not angry with you, she said, not unkindly. You have not offended me. You need not feel distressed. Just then a slave girl entered with some tea on a tray. But tripping on a stool that had got out of place by the door, she fell, upsetting several cups and sugar as she did so. Instantly, the mistress was on her feet. Begumi Haramsarai Balanmashasaripai Fauran, and darting towards the girl before she had had time to recover herself, dealt her blow after blow in the most savage manner on her head, her back, her chest, wherever she could see an unprotected place. Tired at last with her exertion, she was returning to her seat when the sight of a broken cup animated her afresh. خوب تایلغه کچره. باز که من داشت مخواست بور سر چوکی بشینه که امتی یک دنه دید که یک دنه کوبا مجموعی دایه. باز یک دفعه دیگه داغ شد. The whip. چپقی. Bring my horse whip here. چمقینی اسبیم را امیالی. She cried, fetch it at once. Oh, not the whip. Not the whip. No, no, Chamki. No, 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 no. The poor girl pleaded, sobbing, with your hands and feet as much as you please. Bibi, but not with the whip. Spare me, please, spare me. Ah, bad one, her mistress screamed, kicking her. Do you cry now? I'll make you dance directly. And she seized the whip that one of the other girls had brought her. Gul Begum felt sick. She would have protected the girl had she dared, but there were a dozen women at least helping their mistress. And she felt that any effort on her part might be worse than useless, so she waited, silent but horrified. Such treatment for such little offense? Curse you. Padalanat, shouted the girl in pain. And curse your father and your mother. Curse all your father's children. Ah, wretch, yelled the lady, you dare, do you? And giving her a cut straight across the face, she bade the other woman remove her. You will hear more of this, my girl, she said. We shall see who is to be the accursed one. You all heard her. All heard what she said? She went on, appealing to those who stood around. She cursed both Farad Shah's father and mother-in-law. You all heard that, didn't you? We did indeed, yes, we did, replied first one and then another, all around. Not one would have dared to have opposed her in that temper, even had they wished to do so. And yet each girl knew that her turn would come someday, and that exactly the same thing might happen to her, and that no one would raise a finger to her help. که امروز ایرمو مگیم که نمیتونیم نجان نمیدیم خوب خبر داشت که واریز مومن میتر مایا اور ان میتر نفریم گانن سه بزنی میریم. Soon, however, the storm was over and the lady recovered her temper and returned to her seat, but no fresh tea was ordered. Gul Begum felt sorry. She would have liked some. Instead, they were ordered to sit on a carpet at the far end of the room and do absolutely nothing. Oh, داخل برن بيشن بالقلن بالفرش. إيش كار كدني نيجمو. The occupation, indeed, that all the other women shared. خب ده هرم سرای دی چیز کار نید قربور بیشون نیستی. Has no one any work to do? Shireen whispered to her cousin. Inji kas kar namna? Kar nadran? What does she say? Asked the Bibi, but neither of the girls answered. Do you hear me? She asked again angrily. What did that girl say? Chi guftam Ali? I said it was kind of you not to set us work. Shireen prevaricated skillfully. فقط ما گفتم تشکر که مهربانی که ما را در کدام کار مار اختار نگدین. If that was all, why did you not answer at once? Faraj Shah's wife went on sharply. No one is going to hurt you for speaking, ho? Of your kindness, excuse her, whispered Shirin's mother nervously. ببخشید دیگه. از تقصیر از تیر شد. The lady turned to the lady next her, whispered something, and both burst into a fit of forced laughter. Ha 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 ha. The Hazaras sat still, feeling uncomfortable. They knew they were being laughed at. All the rest of that day they spent with the ladies and women of the household, and at 2 o'clock in the morning they were sitting in the reception room, still silent and unoccupied. Even Shirin did not venture on a remark. Next day they were not sent for, nor the next. They had their meals alone and were little noticed by anyone, but the third night Gul Begum was startled from her first sound sleep. God, what was that? She said Halima too had heard something. Hark, said Shirin after a pause. What was that? It was as though several people were struggling in a padded room through which nothing could be heard distinctly. Then all was perfectly silent. The women sat up still, listening. They knew not for that. After a time, the door leading into the beautiful garden in which Gul Begum so longed to wander opened, and someone rapped noisily at the door of the house. Open here, some of you, the doorkeeper's voice called out. What's going on in here? What was that noise? Darban Maya. A voice gave some answer that the listeners upstairs could not catch, but seemed to pacify the old man. For he took his departure without proceeding further, murmuring as he went, Cursed be the fathers of these women, but padar is in our lanat. Why can't they keep quiet and peaceable? There's always some row or other going on. Never mind, they'll have the master home soon. And then they will have something to do to keep him quiet. And they will do them all good. Women are never so troublesome as when they have nothing to do. The Hazaras sat listening to his retreating footsteps and then turned and looked at one another. They heard a footstep on the stairs leading to their room. Gul Begum signed to the others to lie down. And feigned to be asleep. They did so, and presently the door opened softly. And someone peeped cautiously in, stood for several seconds without moving or speaking, then quietly closed the door again and retired. It was a Bibi. But still the Hazaras lay still. No one dared to move or speak, though they knew not what they feared. And at last they fell asleep. With the morning, brighter thoughts came to them. The great event of the preceding night seemed like a dream. I dare say it was nothing, Halima said. Do you think it was in any way connected with that slave girl? Shireen asked anxiously. I shall never forget that scene. Shall you, Gul Begum? Gul Begum? Hush. Her cousin answered with some irritation. Do, for God's sake, keep that tongue of yours still. What's the use of talking about things that don't concern you? But they do concern me. Shireen went on. I can't forget the girl, and I can't forget poor Nuqra. They are both slaves, and they call us slaves too. You know, Gul Begum, and what happened to them may someday happen to one of us. We have always heard the most awful tales of Farhad Shah, but it would seem that cruelty and injustice are by no means confined to the master of his house. اینجا هر نفر اون مرقمه خدا نجات بیده از جایی من خیلی میترسم تای. Look here, Gul Begum said crossly, if you want to say these things, please go and say them to someone else. In a house of this sort, the very walls can hear. And what you are saying now may be repeated to the Bibi when she wakes. You will get not only yourself, but every one of us into trouble by your chattering. I will not have you talk of what you see and hear in this house to me, okay? چیز میگرنی، چیز میشنوی، ده خود خبیل یک کس دیگر بگی. مرا نکو عذاب. کنال ده عذاب میندازی. You seem very nervous and anxious, more so even than I am, who never pretend to be brave. تو بیخی زیاده آلتو از مگه خرابتر معلوم باشه گل بیگم. Shireen went on, almost crying. What do you think can happen to us? I know no more than you do. Much is khabarum ki what happened to us. Gul Begum answered again severely, I only know that if you want to bring misfortune and trouble on us all, you will go on gossiping as you have been doing. بدبختي وردني نعمة قفتا بورد. And if you wish to avoid both, you will keep absolutely silent. Do you remember what that slave girl said to you the other day? It is not only I who tell you of this bad habit of yours. It is absolute strangers meeting you for the first time. Oh, how cruel you are to remind of that again, Shireen went on. I feel as if I could never get it out of my head. Why did you ever bring us here? All this misfortune has come upon us through you. تمام بدبختی دي سستويت. چرا وردی مورینجی؟ Yes, indeed, Halima went on most ungenerously. What made you say to that man that you were the chosen of Farhad Shah? It was very forward of you and hardly true. کدام از کی گفته بودی؟ تو پیش خود خریج دی، مورم زدی دی اینج من کدی. It was quite true, Gul Begum said, and you know it. Besides, I did not ask you to come with me. It was you who asked me to bring you, and only 2 days ago you told the Bibi you were more than satisfied with the treatment you had received. Kalo khosh budi na duras pesh. Why have you changed? Why do you ask? 2 days ago we did not know anything of the ways of this household. Muchis khabari ki raqama. The girl's mother said, ignoring the absolutely incontestable statement that she was there where she was by her own doing. Gul Begum ras magadi gona khudon gut maram bubar. Hali de sar azim mag tu more challenge urdi. Then lowering her voice, 2 days ago we had not heard that cry. Was it a cry? Asked her sister-in-law. Something woke up, but I could not say what it was. Perhaps it was not a human cry after all. Might it not have been a jackal? Gul Begum, who was more especially dressed, said nothing. Whatever her own ideas on the subject was, she evidently wished to keep them to herself. One little observation she had made. When first she woke that morning, but she revealed it to no one. یک چیز دیده بودم صبح که بیدار شد مگر خودش کس نگفت. And took an early opportunity of obliterating what she had seen. پس رفت اونجا بینگن چیه گپ چیه. It was a mark evidently of a woman's shoes on the wooden door sill, and the nature of the stain left behind was unmistakable. It was blood. एक चपली ज़नाना कम खून तीच दमन जबात मंदा. Something of that old hunted look that Gul Begum had had in the old terrible days with Muhammad Jan strolled back into her eyes. Amrozai badbakhti ke zaman da khane Muhammad Jan badunji. They had chamad, and there was something too denoting fixed resolve. Shireen did not feel particularly friendly towards her cousin on account of the lecture she had received as to the too free use of her unruly member, so she did not join her cousin as usual. And Gul Begum was left to herself and her thoughts. Shireen kam qara, which did not seem to be of any particular pleasant nature. She started when Halima suddenly laid her hand on her shoulder. عملت هذه فكرة رقم أصدق دست Halima بلشانيش. Look here, Gul Begum, the older woman said in a whisper. You brought us here. You must devise some plan for getting us away. We are here locked up, like prisoners and surrounded by people who seem capable of anything. This is far worse than Muhammad Jan's house. You have a way with people that makes them give in to you. Get us out of this. I shall be driven mad with terror. ما خیلی میترسم من مربور کنم زنجیش. گل بگم تو مور من جورده مربور کو. The girl looked at her mother. A sad pity for herself, as well as for her mother, swelling her up in her heart. Listen, mother, she said, I have already resolved to do all I can, but I cannot yet make up my mind what to do. It appears that Farhad Shah contemplates marrying me. Can you devise any plan which would get me away from here before his return? I have been thinking and thinking, but can come to no decision likely to prove successful. Halima, really alarmed for her own safety, became more amiable and more sensible than usual. Then usual, and mother and daughter conferred for some time together. When the discussion was over, Gul Begum seemed less dejected. There was something to be done, besides sitting and awaiting what she felt to be her doom. And the girl's spirits rose at the very thought of release from this establishment of horrors. Azikhane Vahshat, Vahshatistan, Chirkham, Farar Kana. Eniminji mo close manim Dastanra, Bare Azizan, Nosago and Bakulo, and Ajego, Doktoro, Zausto, Bachkicho. Nawroz Zawar is talking to you. The character was narrating is trying to be Nawroz Zawar, you know. And Nawroz Zawar means something. It means Nawroz Zawar is a character. a character combining two opposing characters, completing a circle. A kid, a child with original flow, freshness, curiosity, learning, flowing, moving on with life, and carelessness. Something falling, sometime experimenting, but all these falling and experiencing and panyat shudo throughout ages comes down to the bakul. Agar bakul is panyat bakul, as dard panyat shuda u pukhta shuda rafta. This bakul is called a sage. एक बुजुर्ग است باکول نه بزرگه کرامات والایه ای قدزی زوستو نوسگویی که دی زمانان چندان کرامات نیه فقط کنزیومر است टाइम पास है द हवा है because there is no connection اینالی امو عزیزای دوستای نوسگویی کی خوشبخت هستند که باکولویش پایلیش شده د لندن شتین د ملبورن د نیویورک د ایران د افغانستان د پاکستان د هیچستان عزیزان من دوستانی که مثل جاکارتا بوگور زی کمپای مهاجرتا که امروز هم پرتاوستین درد دوباره برای این نسل میخرین در جان خو اینی باکول رو پرسان کن که موشر پانیاد نشده امکان داره که می فاصله باکول نوسا زیاد شده باشه اینی میر نوروزوار مگاتای بیشت اینی می داستانی درد و پانیاد را از درسته که هیستوریکل داکومنت نیه البته از چشم دید گواهی یک زن انگلیسی از خانواده شاهی بریتانیا که یک دکتر است و در دربار عبدالرحمن کار مونه و این داستان را که میبینه پیش روی خو و گل بیگم برایش قصه مونه و thank you for راجی گلزاری می دی هزار آرکایوز می چی تیوی الطاف صفدری and حیدری و اکبری و قلندری everybody که بودن و خصوصا پدر اگر استین و میگنین که باکولو نوسا can get together along in these times of انفرادی شده سلول به سلول تنم خود من در خود من در خود من زندانی است. Now how to get out of this zindan? We as usual ask our very creative question. Are you a warrior in a garden or a gardener in a war? Haikido Navroz Zawar. Haikido.